So I'm the last speaker for tonight, for this first meetup. I'm not going to do a little bit about storytelling. And I was also talking to Ninja for a while that some of my points kind of touch the points that you were making, but then from a different angle kind of. But it's a different angle altogether. So I'm just going to try to roll it out for you guys. My background is I've done a lot of work when I was still working for Capgemini for a corporate website, so my reference point is mostly from that perspective of software development, so to speak. But first I have a kind of a question, something that I encounter a lot of times in my work, and perhaps that some of you recognize this type of situation. It's a situation where you and your team, you are working on a project, and you have developed in your minds a new idea that you want to pitch to the client. And it's a very good idea. Of course it's a good idea, you thought of it, so it's a very good idea. And so you pitch it to the client, and the client says, moi, or something like that. And so it's a lukewarm response. And I've also seen very good ideas, and they did a lot of work on the business case, and the business case turned out positive. Now, what can go wrong? I have a positive business case. So again, you go to the client, you present the idea, you present the positive business case, and still you get a moi, kind of. And sometimes even I've seen situations where not only did they have a business case, but they also had very impressive graphical designs made of the future state of their idea. Really, really impressive work. But it was jaw-dropping beautiful. And still the client said, no. So that got me thinking, why is this happening? And this is where storytelling can come in handy. If you want your next project to get an okay by the decision makers, you had better learn storytelling. And I want to start off with just a little bit of the science behind storytelling, what it is, before I go into product design and how you can apply it in product design, but also in branding and in identity. Stories, in essence, is how we as human beings learn and how we communicate. It's our brain is wired in stories. That's how we understand the world around us. And a really well-brought story can make you feel as if it were really happening to you. And I think the best example for this is if you go to a movie. If you go to a cinema, it is like a horror movie. There's a bunch of interesting stuff going on the screen. You're not just watching it, your body is reacting to what is happening over there. And why that is that because stories have the capacity to activate the same regions in your brain as if you were actually there experiencing it. So in that way, stories are an empathy machine. They can make you feel what is happening. You can empathize with the characters. You can empathize with the situation that's going on. And the other part is that we learn. We learn from what we see, and you kind of make a conclusion, so there is danger there, and this is a good thing to do. So there's two important elements. And the science on this is that it might go way, way back, like centuries ago, that the people who had the best chance of survival were the people who were able to tell stories, to convey information to the other person, and the listener to actually hear. So perhaps people from the group would tell stories about where they found food, a complex route through the forest and overcoming hurdles and perhaps even fighting off dangerous animals and all kinds of stuff to get to the food. That's very vital information for you to know and to understand and to comprehend. But there's something happening when the story is unfolded, when the story is told in the listener's mind. The listener is already, transporting him or herself in that situation. There's already living through, what if I go that path tomorrow, and what if I want to reach the food, and how can I overcome the hurdles and outrun the dangerous animals or beat them up or whatever. So the stories are a way for that person to learn new behavior. So stories have a persuasive quality to them as well. You have not experienced the situation as such, not yet, but you're already envisioning a what-if scenario. So that's an important thing to understand with stories. So if we now take storytelling and stories into a business context, and this is kind of where I touch the point made earlier today. You want to make a good product, you want to make a better product. So if you look at the product development life cycle, you would normally start with customer research. And you do this research to fully understand how the target audience acts, what are the motivations, what are they doing, what are their preconceptions of certain aspects, how do they behave, and what is their decision model like when buying a product or whatever. I've seen some clients where the customer research had been done, and the customer research was done perfectly. It was done in a really thorough way. But then they presented customer insights. And in a case, at a client, I saw them present them in an Excel sheet. So you capture all those facts about the customers, there's row upon row upon row of facts on the customer, on the customer behavior. Again, the research was done perfectly, and the customer insights in those Excel sheets were very insightful and very helpful, something that you would want the entire product development team to understand. So not just the coders, but also the copywriters, the photographers as well, graphical designers, interaction designers, but also beyond the teams, also the call center people. You want all those people to understand this is our client, this is the one we are designing a product for. But because it was a list, it was very inaccessible, it was very hard to remember. And if we wrap up these facts in a story structure, it's much, much easier to understand. And it's much, much easier for us as people to empathize with this customer. Stories are 2 to 10 times more memorable than facts. So even if you have a list of facts and you try to teach them to someone, if you take the same facts and you wrap them up in a story structure, the same facts, people will remember it much, much better if you tell it in a story instead of just presenting a list. I've also come across a whole different approach to presenting customer insights, something that I'm guilty of myself and changed since I found out storytelling, so to speak. That is, I've done the customer research and I had all this data, and now I wanted to present them to the rest of the team and the rest of the organization. So a lot of the times, and this still happens a lot of the time, is that you design beautiful posters to hang upon the wall. It's a description of the character of the target audience. You draw out a customer journey, what's the customer doing from A to B to C to D, etc. And what I noticed was there was a lot of positive attention around the moment that you put those posters up on the wall. But later on, a couple of days, a couple of weeks later, the information just dissipated and actually dropped dead. It was not something that was very memorable. So I was looking for ways, how can we make it more memorable? How can people understand? Because the development team needs to understand, and also the copywriter needs to understand, not just the coders, everyone needs to understand this information. And that's when storytelling came in. And so instead of just having these personas, these archetypical descriptions of your customers drawn out on posters and such, my point is tell it like a story. So invite into the team people from the call center. They have very interesting stories to tell about what the customer is like. They have first-hand knowledge of that. There are other people who do that as well, but also the people who have done the customer research. So if you tell the stories about the customers, you get a far much more understanding and empathy in the development team for the audience that we are designing for. And use words and visuals and motion and whatever it is that you want to use, much, much more than just one moment. It's not that one person at one point tells these are the customer insights and that's it. Throughout the process, and I think Nina was also talking about that as well, you want to stick to, it's a form of quality assurance. So it's not the customer research has been done and you're away, but you keep telling stories about the customer. And because they are story structures, it's much easier also to explain to the client why you have made design decisions, instead of just going from screen to screen to screen and how certain elements on the screen work or how they don't work, perhaps. But you tell it like a story. You tell the story of the customer, and then you talk through the design decisions that you've made, the why behind all these decisions. An important thing here is we as human beings have a tendency to like stories as well, but it's only one tool. You need to have them fact-based. So do the business analysis, do the customer research. You take those facts and you use those facts into a story structure to convey this information. Storytelling can be used for several aspects. It's used in strategy. So if you're thinking about branding and identity, which we as a group will be doing next as a little exercise. For stakeholder management, product design, and advertising. And just to give you some kind of an overview, the Storyteller toolbox has several elements in it, but way too many to discuss in half an hour or even 3 hours, I guess. What I want to do next is take something that is a thing in branding and identity and take the characters as a tool, and then we can experience how something like that would work. And in the end, it ends up in product development and product design as well. So Carl Jung has defined these 12 characters as archetypical characters. How he saw it is that these 12 characters are in us, in our culture, in our human beings, they resonate us on a very deep level. They keep coming back. They came back for all the period of time that he was investigating, and they still keep coming back now. They come back in stories, they come back in the people that we resonate with, the brands that we resonate with. So these are 12 archetypes, and they are now used in branding and identity as a thinking process if you want to shape your identity. So I listed some brands and their possible identity. I guess you can kind of feel that Virgin is a different type of identity, different type of brand than, let's say, Zwitserleven. And from the names as well, the hero, the magician, the lover, you can kind of feel that those brands would behave in a different way. If Nike were the teacher, it would be something else than what they are now. Perhaps they would, if they think that we want to remodel ourselves to this persona, to this identity, perhaps they would make some other choices in their products and services as well. So what I now want to do is do a hypothetical exercise so you can see how this would work. We're going to take this character, the magician. Other names for this character are the alchemist or the visionary. And the brand characteristics of such a character is it's very visionary, idealistic, and innovative. Its core sense of being, its reason for being is, I want to transform the world into something new, a deep transformation. And for this little brainstorming exercise, I just need one of you to pick any supermarket chain here in the Netherlands or in Europe. Doesn't matter which one. Picnic? Is that something everyone knows here? No? Okay, so preferably a supermarket chain we all know. What? Lidl, yeah. Lidl, no. We can take Lidl. So now we all together we are invited by Lidl to help them think about their identity and their branding. And as an exercise, we are going to well, in factuality, we would use several of these characters to explore, but now that would take too much time. We're just going to take one. So just imagine that Lidl is has a vision on food, a vision on health, and a vision on sustainability. And in their vision, tomorrow's world would look like there's local food, plenty available all around the world, no chemicals in it, and it's in a wide variety available around the world. Because we, as human beings, we need a whole palette, a schijf van 5 here in Netherlands, kind of, for a healthy body and mind. So in their vision, we should transform our world, and that's what they want to make their mission, perhaps. As they're still just thinking, what if we would go along that route? So in their mission, they want to transform not only themselves, but they want to transform the industry, and they also want to transform the customer, so that they will go for local, seasonal, healthy food without chemicals. Now, if we are to think, and this is just a brainstorming exercise, and we all kind of know how Lidl now looks, well, what's on the shelves, and they now have a certain type of supply chain, how they get the food, etc., etc. But now they are a different character. So try to imagine it in a story, if you will. Now the character is, it's my mission to go for local, sustainable, healthy food. What will this mean for their business model? How will they, can someone come up with any ideas? How will they select suppliers? What will their store look like? What will be on the shelves and what won't be on the shelves?
Healthy products?
Yeah, for one, yeah.
I think their price range would go up, their target audience would change.
Yeah, there's all implications. Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. Would they just go for suppliers that say, I can produce fruit tens of thousands of kilometers away and I will transport them to Europe? Or would they say, I will go for local suppliers and local food, or what, in this character? In this character. Is that something that would fit this character and this identity much more than it's kind of things like that, you know? But your point is very good. It's when you start to think about this, you also start to think about the implications. What will this mean for my business? But now let's move along a couple of months. Let's say that all the research has been done, the market research has been done, the customer research has been done, the business analysis has been done, everything that you can research has been done, and everything turns up green. So it's viable, it's profitable to make the change, they want to make the change, they really feel it in their core DNA, this is what we have to do. Now, because we're a couple of months along the time, now all the people here, we are now team digital. So we now get the question, this is our new identity. What possible features, content, things can we think of for the site, the app, the smartwatch thingies, whatever digital. So now we are product development in the early stages. Can someone just a brainstorm, think of something for the website, for the app? What would this identity mean for the little?
Maybe something like an app where it says which food is in season right now from local farmers because it's tastier and healthier.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's certainly something that would fit this identity. Some else, other ideas?
connection between partners and customers.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah, yeah. Bring them together. Yeah, yeah. It's not something that you do right now.
Not really.
Any other ideas what this would mean for their webinar app, possibly?
Perhaps that people get notified when there's like a sort of discount or when they have like too much food and you can get discounts so they can reduce waste.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a nice one, actually. Yeah, yeah. It might be things like that. It might be also a pilot. Bring your own wrapping kind of pilot, because we want to minimize waste. So you go to the store and instead of everything is wrapper in wrapper in wrapper in wrapper, you have less wrapping and perhaps something like that. And perhaps they would pilot it to see is it viable, do the customers handle this and stuff like that. But what you can see is happening here is, and if you do this for a couple of characters, is you get a whole different company. And it's a different way, a less dry way to think about branding and identity, and also the impact on, in this case, a site or an app. It's still early stages. There's no design decisions whatsoever. So after this, of course, you have to do all the thinking. Is this the way that we are going to go? And we have done this for a company because they want to rediscover, I guess, their identity. And when first presented with these 12 archetypes, some of the people there, they had an initial connection. Oh yeah, we are the hero. But when we had them write up stories, what would this mean in actuality for their products and services, and how would they act, what would the brand behavior be like, then they started to discover, oh, the stories don't fit us. And so while writing and thinking about those stories, they came up with, we're much more the scholar, the sage. There was an expert-driven company. So it's quite a different choice, a very difficult choice to transform yourself into a hero with a much different brand behavior. So a very important point is, if you do something like this, is hold up the mirror. Is it doable? Is it viable? Can we achieve it? And is it really us? Most of the time, when you do stuff like this, and you use the storytelling, you do it to uncover the identity that is there, and then you can see how you can strengthen the other channels in the brand behavior. It's quite another thing if a company wants to, realign. It's more a strategic question, are we going to go on a different path? But what I find is if you do it in this way, it's a little bit easier for people to start to think. Because the other options often are just, like bullet points. There's a market chance over here, and people are, research shows that there's a niche over there. But it's a different kind of, people can't visualize what is happening. If you do it in story structure and around these characters, it's easier to explore these what-if scenarios, and you get some real interesting results out of it. So the company that I was talking about, the result from this was, okay, we are probably not the hero type, that's not our identity, we're much more the expert, and it had a direct impact on how they applied this to corporate blogging, expert blogging, which they didn't do prior. But when it's like a mirror from, okay, if we are the teacher, if that's our identity, how can we feel that it's actually true? What do you do that you make your identity come true? It's just like in a book, really. If you have a book and the main character is a hero, it doesn't say on page 1, this person is the hero, and then the rest of the 100 or 200 pages, the person isn't doing anything heroic whatsoever. You don't say on page 1 it's the hero, but you read the story, you see the actions, and then you recognize that character as being the hero. It's the same with this. So it's there's especially in advertising, a lot of clients think if we just advertise our identity, we don't really have to change anything that we do. That's not going to work. If it's your identity, then you have to think about what is our brand behavior through our products, services, advertising, branding, call center, etc. And it has its implications on the website and on the app. So I wanted to present this as well as a possible different way for you guys to talk to your clients. There were kind of 2 points here. Is if you talk to a client about your project and you want to share information, you can think of all the facts about the customer that you know, just read them up in stories and tell and deliver your project in storytelling way. It's much easier to comprehend and much easier also for your client to empathize what's my customer like and why is this product working so well. Of course, you do the A/B testing and usability testing, but on the way that you are presenting, then that is something that you can do. On the other hand, is when you do an exercise like this and you're talking on a different level with the client, you are talking about what is your strategy, what is your identity, and how does the channel that we, or you guys in this case, are developing fit that identity? What can we do? So it goes a little bit beyond discussions about the product backlog and the sprints and do we have 2 more sprints or 5 more sprints or whatever. It goes to a different level. So I think it can change the dialogue that you have with your customers a little bit. So next time that you have a good idea and you want to have a yes from the other side of the table, have a story to tell. Yeah. Any questions or remarks? Or? Yeah.
Is it possible for a company to have multiple characters, for example, one in relation with the customer and the other in relation with the employees or something? Or is
It
always
happens,
the same?
but probably not. No. No. If it's good, you as a company has an identity and you can feel it throughout. So also within your company and also without your company. And but it happens that only in branding and in advertising the identity is maintained, identity A, and that the company itself reacts in a very different way. I don't think that that's a very healthy way and sustainable way as well. So preferably you have one identity that you stand for. But it doesn't mean, I'll take back the this one. It doesn't mean that if you are, this one's better, but if you are the caregiver, that you won't have any strict measures on responsibility for the employees, etc., etc. But if this is your main character, it must resonate at some level, at least, internally, because these people are also the people who are developing your products, or product marketeers, so they have to live that identity to make it a reality. As a little bit of an example, I was pretty much impressed with Cirque du Soleil a couple of years ago. It was in Amsterdam, I guess, and I was too early there. So there was a guy was still closing all the doors. It's a tent, but the doors, you know. And so when I walked up, he didn't say, and he wasn't part of the show, but he didn't say, in 30 minutes. What he told us was, we are still building the dream. In half an hour we are ready. So he is living the identity of Cirque du Soleil. And I was pretty much impressed by that. So even someone who's not usually in contact with, he's not part of the show, he's not in contact, he lived the identity of the company. I think that's really a wonderful thing.
Actually, this slide triggered me. because I think big brands have especially a challenge with choosing one identity. I think Philips is a great example here, because I cannot see Philips as a teacher. For me, they are the caregiver.
That's yeah.
Can you imagine
Yeah,
why?
yeah. I can, but if you look online,
Yeah.
you can find these brands plotted on different,
Yeah, I know.
aspects. So
So,
that,
so it's really also,
Yeah.
especially for big brands, but it's also really personal for
Yeah.
people who interpret this.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It's not. There are a couple of things. There's overlap between those characters. That's one. That's always the case, and it's not that in this case. Philips or Nike, they say, okay, we have this one character. It's a starting point to think.
Yeah.
And what characteristics, and you want the consistency of all the channels. But it's a little bit to do with perhaps if you go with sense and simplicity. Well, they're certainly not an Apple like kind of company. They're certainly also not a Tesla kind of company. And also in the medical department, I think it's much more on hardcore knowledge and truth and all those kinds of things. That would be a reason to say teacher, but you could also say caregiver. In some lines they try to, also in medical, to do how can we make the life of a patient or the experience of the patient more subtle or more nice. Etc. So, but it centers around there. They're probably not something like this or a magician, but yeah.
I think that the main idea I was trying to highlight here that for bigger companies that a very wide variety of products,
Yeah.
and a very diverse portfolio.
Yeah.
This kind of exercise may confront them with the fact that they should maybe not be one company. Which could be true for fitness.
Wow. Yeah, perhaps. But it's also different for Procter and Gamble and Unilever.
Yeah, exactly.
They have different brands, so then you have to do this in a brand level.
Yeah.
I guess. For Philips, yeah, well, they have been kind of splitting up and I don't know, doing all kinds of things. Perhaps I'm not sure, but perhaps there's something to do with. There's also like a culture thing, you know,
Yeah.
what's going on. So if you have identity, you live your identity, but there are two blood groups within the company, that could be, that perhaps, that could be part of the mirror. Is it us or are there two separate companies that are us, so to speak? And would it be better, yes or no? Yeah.
Quite awesome if you're asked for developing a new company marketing strategy, and as a result,
The company splits up.
it's or start a new company. That's impact.
That's impact, yeah, that's impact.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. I have a question.
Yeah.
Where and how did you stumble upon this storytelling in your own career? Where did you find out about the tools?
Well, I started to look when I started to, what I told about customer research. I've done a lot of customer research, and then I just thought, okay, the information doesn't stick. How can I make it stick? So then you start to Google. And so then I bumped into that stories are much more memorable. And once you have that word, stories, you kind of, it's not an automatic thing that you bump into this, because it's been, well, Carl Jung, it's from a couple of decades ago even, you know, so it's not a new thing. And but while Googling, I bumped into this, it was a couple of years ago. And so then I started to use it more and more often. Not just it, but all kinds of storytelling techniques. I use it for business consultancy as well. It's because of its persuasive qualities that you have, but also to play the game. I always play the what if game. From, okay, we say this, but then what if we do this? Just to hold up the mirror, what will happen then? And it's all kinds of things in storytelling besides characters that you can use. So it was a couple of years ago, and it started with my own recognition that, okay, the customer insights, all those facts, they just don't stick. They stick with me because I've done all those interviews. I remember them, but the rest of the team needs to remember them. Or even if I'm gone, they need to remember them. And the funny fact is, if you talk to, I don't know where you now work, but if you talk to someone at a call center, they will tell you a funny story, and in 5 years' times, you will still remember that funny story about the customer. Because it's a story. You know, and people, if you go to a call center or go to a sales representative or to people who work in shops, they will tell you remarkable stories of what happened to them. So that's kind of when it hits for me. Yeah. On top of a user-centered design, actually. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, I think we are-